How has Kash Patel managed to stick around this long? I mean, we understand this is an administration that values loyalty over competence. I understand he has a certain appeal with a sector of the MAGA base. But at this point, what a headache.
What you keep hearing from folks is that he wasn't the biggest headache for Donald Trump, right? You had Pam Bondi, who was much more frustrating. You had Kristi Noem causing him more problems, especially with the base. Kash Patel is not causing issues with the base. And I think that's the difference, right, is that when you talk to the base about Kash Patel, when you talk to MAGA faithful about Kash Patel, they don't really have a lot of issues with him. They like him. They feel like he brings a certain energy. When he does television hits, he knocks them down like that Donald Trump wants them to. And so that is a key aspect of this, is if you piss off the base and Trump, then you have to go.
Well, there is that. And that's an important part of the whole thing. I mean, I've been saying it from the very beginning. When the first stories came out reporting Kash Patel's demise, I kind of laughed at them because he is of value and remains of value to Donald Trump. Now, yeah, he doesn't like to see his FBI director out there, drinking it up with the boys at the Olympics. And he doesn't like all the noise about the airplane rides with his girlfriend. He doesn't like a lot of stuff. But I think Eugene puts his finger on the right pulse here, and that is his base loves him. Now, the only little tweak with the base is there's still this little Epstein thing that Kash Patel was out there banging the drums for. Now, that's gone silent. But the reality of it is Kash Patel ain't going nowhere until he tripwires the base and Donald Trump at the same time. So let's bring in MS Now senior investigative reporter Carol Linick, who's just broke that story on Kash Patel, and MS Now legal analyst Mary McCord, who's breaking all kinds of stuff, too. She served as principal deputy assistant attorney general at the Justice Department, and she's the co-host of MS Now's Main Justice podcast.
Carol Linick, the hardest working woman on the Justice Department beat. I want to read from your story with Ken Delanian today on the Patel polygraphs. Patel has walled himself off from some senior bureau leaders this week in the wake of multiple media reports that raised red flags about his leadership, according to 3 people familiar with his recent actions. 2 of the people told MS Now that the director ordered the polygraphing this week of the former and current security detail members, as well as several information technology staff. I'm going to read something else. Sorry, producers. The FBI director demanded the polygraph examinations to determine if any members of the team that accompanies him on his travels or staff who have access to sensitive details about his decisions have communicated with reporters. That seems like the gist of this all. Doesn't that happen sometimes? There are leak investigations. I've heard some of my sources in the past get leak investigations on them. But all of this feels a little fishy, I think, to people.
There are leak investigations. I've written about some of them. I think my reporting has been, has been the subject of some. And under administrations, Republican and Democrat, the difference was material that I wrote about that was the subject might have been classified, right, or was about a wiretap, incredibly sensitive, that triggers an immediate leak investigation. In this case, there's no indication that this material is classified. It's unflattering and humiliating to Kash Patel. And as we've reported in MS Now, especially with the help of my colleague Ken Delanian, all of these news stories really get under Donald Trump's skin. He doesn't like bad press. You're right about the base. That'll be the killer. But this annoys him and has serially led the White House to reach out to Patel and his team and say, cool it. So these humiliating stories are really causing him, according to sources that called me over the last 24 hours, to hit the panic button.
Mary, I just want to underline that first line that Eugene read from Carol's reporting, which was that Patel walled himself off from some senior bureau leaders. In a crisis, how often have you watched a leader cope by walling themselves off from the very people who ought to be acting as their allies?
I mean, well, certainly it's not something that the FBI director should do. But he, at this point, appears to be so paranoid about people around him potentially leaking unflattering information, like Carol said, that I guess, at least according to this reporting, that's one of the things he wants to probably keep making that circle smaller and smaller and smaller. But suppose we have a crisis. Suppose we have a terrorist attack. Suppose we have, a hostage situation. Suppose we have any of the numerous things that come in at the FBI that require the director to make decisions. And it means the director has to have the best information. I mean, I spent 3 years going to meetings with the FBI director every morning of the week to get the latest on everything that was happening. And in that room was the director, the deputy director, the assistant director for counterterrorism and for counterintelligence, and some people from the Department of Justice. Suppose that Director Patel, who I don't even think has those meetings anymore, just, walls himself off from all of these people. I mean, you're not going to get good decisions being made. And also, just to go back to Carol's point about these polygraphs, there are internal leak investigations that you can do for internal discipline, but a criminal investigation, like we've heard with respect to the reporter at the Atlantic, that can only be if there's a crime. And leaking information about Kash Patel drinking is not a crime. It's not classified. It's not even confidential. It's not even law enforcement sensitive, right? It is just unflattering. And so I worry about some misuse of investigative authorities when I hear things like that.
So I love me some Carol Linick reporting. I just you've been knocking it out of the park, getting to the real meat of what's happening here in town, and sort of clarifying for a lot of people out there, not just the dysfunction that everyone's kind of come to expect and sort of know, but to really put it in the context of why this government is functioning the way it's functioning, and really what's at the core of it is the retribution thing. It animates what Patel is doing. It animates what others are doing. And I think Jack Smith really kind of, called that out a little bit with respect to Todd Blanche's role a little bit more. He noted, hopefully the Attorney General is looking at what he's done, including some of the crooked and corrupt witnesses that he was attempting to use in his case against me, Trump wrote on social media earlier this year. The decision of whether to prosecute Smith now rests with Todd Blanche, the acting Attorney General, who served as Trump's lead defense lawyer in the cases brought by Smith.
Who's also auditioning for The Real Job.
Who's auditioning for The Real Job. Smart. And at the core of all of this dysfunction is how very, very small men and women make themselves smaller for Donald Trump. And if you want to remain Donald Trump's little pet, then you have to behave and perform a certain way. Enter Todd Blanche. And so what is your reporting telling you when you're talking to people, the sources, what are they telling you about this next level that we're about to go into? Because Blanche is going to get the job, I think, at the end of the day. I mean, he's just doing too much too good for Trump right now, for Trump to say, I want you to stand on the sidelines and sort of govern all of this from over there. I think he wants them in the mix. What does your reporting tell you?
So our reporting from inside the building, from, I have to say, some incredibly brave people amid all the polygraphs, right? Still willing to speak to us, and thank you out there, all of you, is that Blanche is auditioning hard for the job. I don't think that's now a mystery, but what they are saying are the specific things and steps he has taken have put pleasing Donald Trump into overdrive. For example, last week, Ken and I reported that the seashells case, I like to call it the seashells on the beach case, because it sounds like a drink. But the seashells on the beach case was actually completely on ice when Pam Bondi was the Attorney General. She didn't think the case was that strong and felt that the lying to Congress case against former FBI Director Jim Comey had more legs, even though that had major issues. Blanche, as soon as Bondi was fired in April, he put that on overdrive and immediately sped that up. And within days, Comey was indicted in the Eastern District of North Carolina by the son of a very respected federal judge down there who is the interim interim U.S. attorney. There are other things that Todd Blanche has done that are really on full display in front of all of us. For example, saying, "I love you, sir." That's not the norm.
That's a little weird.
I'm pretty sure that
weird.
Mary never said that to any attorney general or president.
Right.